Tonight's sponsors, we have Sanofi Genzyme, we have Genentech, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Novartis. And I'm sure you could see them on the screen behind me. And so let's give them a virtual round of applause. Yay! Thank you. Thank you for doing this, okay? All right. For those that don't know and not sure about what program you're watching, this is an MS Views and News educational program. So let me let you know something else, all right? Paul Pelland. Paul Pelland, I've had him speaking with us for quite some time. So Paul is an MS patient. He's an MS patient advocate. Okay, he's been riding a motorcycle for an extremely long time, and he's riding in hopes of an eventual MS cure. All right, he's raising money along the way. He's giving those monies or that funding to different organizations to help with research, to help with education, to help with many different things. Paul has ridden, I think he's ridden over 400,000 miles at this point in time. I mean, it's just crazy numbers. But right now, we're going to get started with Paul Pelland. All right, so I'm not going to be standing. I'm sitting for this, all right, in case nobody's noticed. We set up a great backdrop here. All right, Paul, it is my pleasure to introduce Paul Pelland. He's a former top 10 motorcycle endurance competitor from New Hampshire who now travels the country, raising awareness and funding for multiple sclerosis. His goal is to document 1 million miles by motorcycle while sharing his inspirational story at hundreds of multiple sclerosis patient events and delivering keynote address and seminars for all types of audiences. You can follow LongHaulPaul on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Despite living with multiple sclerosis himself, over the last 7 years, he has ridden on his bike more than 450,000 miles. Okay, and he's raised over $200,000 for charity. Please, let's welcome LongHaulPaul, Paul Pelland. Take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Stuart. Thank you. And I do have to say, I spent a lot of time trying to find a shirt that would match my mask, but I've evidently found one. So now that we're separated by 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I can take my mask off. And once again, thank you, Stuart, for inviting me here to share my story. Multiple sclerosis affects each of us in different ways. My MS symptoms, they're mostly cognitive. Short-term memory loss, mental fatigue, multitasking, impaired planning, decision-making, and short-term memory loss. Despite the hours and hours that I spent preparing this presentation, I have no idea what slide comes next. But thanks to technology, we have lots of ways to help us out when we remember to use them. I also experience numbness, tingling, burning sensations, and loss of strength issues. Heat is a big enemy of mine, like being here in Orlando, Florida. Trying to get messages or signals through the damaged circuits in my brain gets difficult when my body temperature rises even slightly, which immediately causes all of my MS symptoms to reappear. Hot weather slows me down to a crawl. How about you? Lately, I've had to deal with a cheating, lying, good-for-nothing bladder. And that's been really fun, especially traveling with all my protective riding motorcycle gear on. When I was first diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, it was very clear to me all the importance of getting on treatment right away to slow down the disease progression. And I've been on a disease-modifying therapy now for 15 years. I also started taking better care of myself by exercising regularly and eating healthier. Most importantly, I've discovered by continuing to do something that I really love, following my passion of riding a motorcycle every single day, I've been able to keep this disease from controlling my life. Please remember, MS is not who we are. If you look MS up in the dictionary, I guarantee you will not see my picture. So please make sure your picture never makes it there either, okay? Before getting diagnosed, I was a top long-distance motorcycle competitor, and I rode in some of the toughest motorcycle events, endurance events in the country. During what became my last event, I experienced weakness, loss of dexterity in my hands, confusion, and memory loss. I retired from competing, and I pretty much gave up riding motorcycles altogether. I tossed away my dreams, my plans for the future. I sold my business, and I prepared for the absolute worst. Well, it never came. So I stopped waiting for it. 8 years ago, I realized although I could never compete in motorcycle endurance rallies again because of my symptoms, I could still ride a motorcycle across the country, and that I had thrown in the towel a bit too early on an activity that I really loved. And within a few months, I recalculated my entire life's road, and I am now on a fascinating adventure, riding every day possible, following my passion, while trying to help others recalculate their roads as well. The story I'd like to share with you tonight is real, but the names, the dates, and locations have been changed to protect the innocent. Back in 2001, I was not yet experiencing any signs or symptoms of multiple sclerosis, but I rode a motorcycle that most certainly did. Lemons and Long Shots is the story of my experiences entering the granddaddy of all endurance motorcycle competitions called the Iron Butt Rally. It took me over a decade to realize how entering the world's toughest motorcycle competition on the world's most unreliable motorcycle ever built was frightfully similar to everyday challenges brought on by the unpredictable symptoms of multiple sclerosis. However, this adventure also taught me there is nothing that MS can stop me from attempting. We just have to, or you, me or you, from attempting. We just have to work a bit smarter and push a little harder. But we can accomplish amazing things when we put our heart and our soul into it. Although this story is about a motorcycle competition, I hope that you'll soon realize the motorcycle represents MS and all of its symptoms. The event that I'm riding in represents everyday life. And the rider, who happens to be me, could easily be any one of you here today. Now, not a lot of people have heard of the Iron Butt Rally, but actually more people have been in space than have finished the Iron Butt Rally. It's called the world's toughest motorcycle competition. It's held every other year. The event is 11 days long, and the average rider will ride 11,000 miles during the event. Points are accumulated by reaching checkpoints after visiting optional bonus points picked from hundreds of possibilities. It's not a race. It's like a scavenger hunt on steroids. A drawing is held to determine which riders get in from thousands of entries. I knew that a few select spots were held for old or oddball bikes. So when my name was not drawn for the 2001 event, I wrote a letter begging to ride the biggest piece of junk motorcycle ever built if they would just let me in the rally. I told them I would ride a Russian-made motorcycle called a Ural. Knowing how unreliable and poorly made the bike was, the organizer of the rally first replied that he thought I was an idiot, but that my entry was accepted. At this point, not only did I not own a Russian Ural motorcycle, I had never even seen one. I was excited, so I wrote the bike's manufacturer to see if they wanted to sponsor me. I got a response back from the company president that said, "Sorry, Paul, but nobody here in our office actually thinks our bike could finish the rally." Talk about a red flag. Well, I eventually found and bought a used Ural. I hot rodded the engine and I entered it in a smaller event to kind of test it out. About halfway through this smaller event, the motor decided to weld itself useless. As the big event was getting closer, I begged Ural America for help. And boy, did they answer in a big way. Ural America agreed to officially sponsor me in the Iron Butt Rally, but I just couldn't tell anyone. Apparently, they didn't have much confidence. They delivered a very secret weapon a few weeks before the 2001 Iron Butt Rally. I was going to be riding the first Ural motorcycle registered in the United States with a new, redesigned, more powerful engine. I had to sign all these non-disclosure agreements because the new engine, which was the first change in design since Moses rode one to the edge of the Red Sea, well, it was a big secret. The 2001 rally started and finished in Alabama with 3 checkpoints: California, Washington, and Maine. On a map, the base route looked just like a big rectangle. I mean, how hard could that be, I thought.
At the Ramada Inn in Huntsville, Alabama, the motorcycle people have taken over, and not just any motorcycle people. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to Bike Week. Let me show you some motorcycles here.
I am riding a 2001 Ural.
How do other people react when they hear that news?
Well, I get quite a bit of ribbing, but I give it right back, so I can take it. And I've put a lot of miles on Urals, and things go wrong. I know what to do to fix it, and I have every intention of finishing the rally.
So, yeah, I was sort of laughed at nationally for my choice of motorcycle, and some riders were actually upset that I was wasting a coveted spot that a real rider with a chance of finishing could have had. You know, sometimes we need to remind people it's not the bike, or when you live with multiple sclerosis, it's not our bodies, but the rider, the person, and our spirit and our willpower that will propel us over the finish line. My motorcycle was well prepared. I had huge saddlebags to fit all the spare parts and tools. I had a custom seat, a bigger windshield, extra driving lights, extra fuel tanks, CB radio, radar detector, and a GPS. I was clearly ready to ride the world's toughest motorcycle competition, right? You could taste the anxiety the morning of the start. After all, some of us have been planning this ride for years. My strategy, which I proudly proclaimed, was that I was going to ride as freaking fast as I could, so when I broke down, I would have twice as much time to fix it. I was the only one who thought I had any chance to reach even the first checkpoint. Most riders were having an excellent first day collecting bonuses by taking photos with their rally flags, whereas in West Memphis, Arkansas, and about 250 miles from the start, my Ural's engine self-destructed. Frantically, I called Ural America for help. Curiously, they didn't seem very surprised. We eventually found a Ural dealer in Tennessee who didn't have any bikes for sale, but he had his own personal Ural, and he agreed to let me borrow the motor right from out of his bike. Afraid to close my eyes during a 3-hour tow ride with an insane tow truck driver, I slept on the garage floor while the mechanic removed the diseased motor and swapped his own engine into my frame in the middle of the night. I was extremely grateful, And better yet, I was back in the rally. I left the garage like a bat out of hell. Probably not the smartest idea. My bike now had a 1928 designed 650cc engine without electric start or electronic ignition. I soon realized that the blinkers and the brake lights were not working. I kept waiting for the engine to kind of warm up and smooth out, but apparently crappy was how this bike was supposed to run. After a while, I stopped to check on the rear lights, and after a quick rest, the engine refused to start. I alternated 4 hours of kick-starting and kicking and swearing with resting and praying before the motor haphazardly coughed to life. And I was on the road again, heading to Pomona, California. I was going to prove everybody wrong. Well, that was until my morning freeway crash in Arkansas. The front end of the bike had developed a bit of a crunchy wobble, and a series of dips in the road started an oscillating shimmy in the suspension. I knew I was in trouble when I looked to my left and I saw my own butt. I slid down the highway just behind my motorcycle, watching bright, colorful sparks, unlike any of those plastic-covered Japanese bikes could create. After I stopped rolling, I checked myself over. I was in one piece. I was fine. But the bike, the windshield was cracked in half. The brake lever was bent. Both air cleaners were nowhere to be found. The hand grip had been ground down. There was a 3-inch hole in the side of the engine, which leaked oil all over the road. There was damage to the saddlebags, the blinkers, and the driving lights. What a mess. I had made it through a blown engine, a scary tow ride, an engine transplant, electrical problems, 4 hours of just trying to kick-start the bike, and now a crash. The hardest part was realizing it had just been 24 hours since the 11-day rally had begun. I was exhausted, I was bruised, I was embarrassed, and I was pissed off that this piece of crap machine couldn't even roll in a straight line without falling apart. Now, maybe it's just me, but anybody here watching tonight, listening to my adventure or misadventures, starting to think this sounds a little bit just like one of those tougher days with MS? I think so. I had given it all I had, but my iron butt rally was over. After I explained what had happened to the Arkansas State Trooper who showed up, he asked me what I was going to do about it. What? Well, why don't you just try to patch it up and continue, he said. The thought had not occurred to me. I got out my JB Weld epoxy, my duct tape, and the officer patiently waited while I made repairs. I told him I needed some engine oil. So he went back to his patrol car to see if a service truck might bring us some oil up on the highway. When he returned a few minutes later, he said they wanted too much money. I explained, I don't care what it costs. I want to get back on the road so I can continue. He said, don't worry. He had called his wife at home, and she agreed to meet us up on the highway with 2 quarts of 2050 motor oil. As I travel the country even now, I have benefited from the generosity of strangers just like this many, many times. The officer's encouragement to continue and his wife's selfless act of kindness are not as rare as the world would make us believe. Asking for help or accepting help from friends or strangers is a sign of strength, not weakness. Please don't be afraid to ask for help when your MS causes you to stumble or to crash. Well, I rode to the first exit to really check myself over and, quite honestly, change my dirty underwear. I called into rally headquarters to say that I wasn't quitting. And on day 2, the official rally headlines read, "Team Lazarus rides again." Tuesday afternoon, I was experiencing an intermittent problem. The engine would suddenly lose all power. But when I leaned over, trying to figure out what was going on, the bike would suddenly pick back up and run fine again. This happened 3 or 4 times before I finally realized there was nothing wrong with the motor, just that my pant leg was actually getting sucked into one of the open carburetors that had lost their air cleaner. Sort of reminds me of how we're quick to always blame MS for every ache and pain we have, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one. Early the next day, somewhere in New Mexico, the headlight, once as bright as a lit cigarette, began to get dimmer and dimmer. I pulled off the first exit and I began checking over all the wiring and connections. I found a loose wire, broken wire actually, in the alternator. But I wasn't worried because I was carrying a spare. Unfortunately, the spare that I was carrying was for the newer engine, and it wouldn't fit on the 650 engine. Where it did fit, however, was in the dumpster in the parking lot. After a few dents in the tank, some cursing, and an act of contrition, I was able to repair the broken alternator. I had to push start the bike, but I did finally get it to run. Now, things were going pretty normal until Wednesday afternoon. I was 150 miles and 5 hours before the first checkpoint closed. I was in the desert and it was 110 degrees. My bike has MS, remember? Well, my bike hates the heat. One of the 2 working cylinders calls it quits. I continued limping along at about 25 miles an hour until I reached the hill. The bike just refused to go another inch and dies. I was completely fried. The bike was totally fried. The California Highway Patrol officer who stopped was not very friendly or willing to let me fiddle with the bike on the side of the road. I didn't even bother to ask him to call his wife at home. Against my will, we were towed into Barstow, California. I did all I could to fix the bike, but I finally conceded I would not make the Pomona checkpoint. I had been through so much, and I was so close, but my brain was fried. I was overheated, angry, and then I became extremely depressed. I was a failure. I called into the checkpoint reporting I would not make it in time. And this is when the rally staff reminded me of a rule. A rider could miss one of the 4 checkpoints as long as they went and got a gas receipt and did not miss any of the other checkpoints. I would, however, they cautioned, have to forfeit all of the bonus points that I had gained on leg 1 and 2. I laughed. Bonus points? What the heck were those? The call gave me a surge of renewed hope, and I eventually found a stripped bolt in the valve train and was able to jam a couple of nuts together to hold it in place. The bike started right up, and both of us were running on both cylinders once again, heading to Pomona. Well, I went to the checkpoint after it closed and got my gas receipt. I got to experience the Santa Monica Freeway during morning rush hour with only one turn signal and no brake lights. It was quite the experience. I only remember one breakdown on the way to Sunnyside, Washington, and I diagnosed it and fixed it, which is a loose spark plug wire, without even pulling over. I was getting pretty good. I fell asleep on a soft patch of parking lot asphalt, and upon waking up the next morning, I could hardly believe I had made it all the way to checkpoint 2. I got scored, and, well, besides the riders that were out of the rally, I was in last place. Most of the riders were pretty amazed to see me. They had heard some rumors I was having a little bit of trouble. The Ural factory team, well, they were originally meeting me in Washington for an oil change, but now they were installing the only other 750cc engine that was in the entire country into my bike. So my bike was now given its third engine and a full service. The electrical wiring was repaired, and heck, it was like I had a brand new old bike again. And I had a second chance at a great finish. Ever feel like you have superpowers after getting a good dose of steroids? That's how I felt. So I looked over the bonus lists for the next leg, and I expressed to the rally staff that I was thinking about heading to Alaska for some of the bigger bonuses on this leg. I was strongly encouraged not to attempt Alaska, and in fact, I was actually threatened. If I went to Alaska and I failed, my chances of ever riding in the Iron Butt Rally ever again were slim to none. The rally organizer added, "Paul, you don't understand. More people are paying attention to you and your adventure than the riders who are actually winning." He said, and then he added quietly, "Some of us actually believe you might finish." Well, I didn't go to Alaska, and that was a good thing. Things were going pretty good until I heard this jingling sound coming from the left side of the motor. It sounded like keys were dangling, but I began to get worried, so somewhere near Rock Springs, Wyoming, I pulled off the highway and into a dirt rest area to investigate. I found a lot of aluminum shavings in the valve cover. One of the engine push rods, it seemed bent. It was actually spinning in an oval orbit. So I called and explained what I had discovered to Golden Hands Alex. Now, he was the head Russian mechanic. And Golden Hands Alex said, "Remove pushrod, bang straight on rock with hammer." So I removed the bent pushrod, only to find it wasn't bent. The steel cap had broken off the aluminum shaft. The pushrod was in two impossible pieces. So I called back the #1 top Russian factory expert technician, who simply said, "No problem. Fine metal, make pushrod." Now, pushrods are somewhat important internal parts of an engine. They move up and down to open and close the valves, letting in the gas and the air mixture and letting out the exhaust at the precise time. John Quinones asked, "What would you do?" Well, I did have quite a bit of tools and parts with me, but I didn't have any spare push rods for the new 750 motor. Well, I knew duct tape wasn't going to work, so I decided to try some epoxy. Well, I let the glue harden, and I put the push rod back into the engine. The bike started up and I took off. And I was trying to be real gentle on the throttle. Incredibly, I made it 50 miles before somewhere near Rawlins, Wyoming, the pasted together pushrod failed. Once again, I was putting along at 25 miles an hour, running on one cylinder. The engine was thumping, and the rhythm began to take on a very curious verse. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. This was a pivotal moment. I stood up on the foot pegs. I opened up my helmet and I screamed at the top of my lungs, I will not go home. I will not give up, you commie bleep. And with a grease pencil, I wrote across my windshield, I will not give up. And I vowed no matter what, I was going to finish. I just needed to figure out how. I caressed my injured donkey into Rawlins, Wyoming, where I found a hardware store. And in about 5 minutes, I discovered my solution. I purchased a couple of long, hardened drill bits. And with a grinder that I had spotted in the back room, I forged a couple of brand new Ural pushrods. Find metal, make pushrod. Check. Well, the drill bit pushrod worked, and the bike actually ran better than ever before. I was back on the road, and I was on my way to the 3rd checkpoint. I made it to the checkpoint in Maine, and I retrieved my care package that I had mailed there a few weeks earlier. The box reads, "This package is for the guy riding the biggest piece of crap in the Iron Butt Rally." You know, my whole life I've found laughing and joking, even at my own expense, to be a powerful medicine. Today, living with MS symptoms and deficits is no different. I often make fun of my bad memory, my bladder, when I trip or get lost in a parking lot and I need help. For me, joking gives the disease less power over me. Here's a picture of my bike's windshield with my words of encouragement from Wyoming. I will not give up. With the exception of another charging system failure and another alternator repair, I had a rather uneventful 1,300-mile ride to the finish in Madison, Alabama. Of the 114 riders that started the 2001 Iron Butt Rally, 93 made it to the finish line. I may have come in 86th place, but I did indeed finish the world's toughest motorcycle competition. In 11 days, I had ridden a motorcycle never intended for anything even remotely close to what I did to it. I rode a bike in an event where other riders thought I was wasting a valuable entry spot, and even the organizers officially listed me in the hopeless class. I crossed the finish line on a bike whose own company president said would never make it. My struggle to overcome impossible challenges over those 11 unforgettable days helped shape who I am. And it taught me that if my desire and my willpower is strong enough, there's nothing multiple sclerosis can stop me from attempting. This story, it helps me get through those days when my symptoms seem like they're winning, or when I wake up worried about disease progression. I hope sharing my story can help you as well. Having a brain riddled with holes, having a physical or mental challenge, or riding a piece of junk motorcycle should never confine or define who we are. Please remember, you do not need to come in first place to still be a winner. I know we all have different MS symptoms, and my course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to some. I certainly don't expect all of you out there to run out and buy a motorcycle and ride it all over creation, but I do know some of you are passionate about something at some time, and maybe that passion was put aside after getting MS. I hope my million-mile journey that I'm on now for MS inspires you to return to or find a new passion in your life and to make that passion more important than your disease. Look beyond the obstacles in the road, lean hard into the wind, and never give up on your hopes and dreams. Thank you. If anybody'd like to track me on my journey, you can go to my website, LongHaulPaul.com. You follow me on Facebook and YouTube. I try to post a lot of videos as I'm traveling the country, raising awareness and funds for MS. I do thank Stuart and MS Views and News for providing me a platform to get my story out there. And I appreciate everybody who's there. And I guess we're going to be taking some questions.
That's right. We have some questions for you now. And first off, thank you, Paul. Awesome job. Always was, always will be. Thank you again for everything you're doing. So first question is, person wants to know, how many miles have you ridden since the beginning of your quest to reach 1 million miles?
So I started July 6, 2012 when I came up with the idea. And from there, starting at zero, I'm at about 440 or 450,000 miles, all for going to MS events or places where I'm raising awareness for MS. Those are all MS miles.
How much longer do you think it's going to take for you to reach your 1 million miles?
Well, probably about 650,000 miles.
That's a good way to look at it.
Originally, I wanted to do it. I thought I could do it in 10 years, but I'm not riding my bike every day, like just riding circles around my house. The goal is that the miles are going to be dedicated to MS. So there are times, especially this year, because of the plague or whatever you want to call it, a lot of the events that I was supposed to speak at, a lot of motorcycle events, MS events, were all postponed, canceled. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time at home. And if I'm not going to an MS event, I'm not adding up the miles on the bike. So it's going to take me a little bit longer than I thought. That's it is what it is.
Okay. So the next question was, has the coronavirus impeded your travel schedule, and what might your travel schedule have looked like if we didn't have this virus?
Well, one of my biggest sponsors at this point is Yamaha Motor USA, and they've actually donated the last 2 motorcycles to me. They're also providing avenues for me, you know, a soapbox to talk about my story and my fundraising. So I'm invited by Yamaha to attend all of the big motorcycle events across the country. And this year, probably, you know, 6 or 8 of them have already been canceled. A lot of the MS events that I was going to speak at, even MS Views and News events, have been, you know, there's a lot less of them. Certainly in-person events have been canceled. So yeah, it's definitely affected me quite a bit. I'm certainly not doing the traveling that I usually do, and you know, I hope that this changes in the near future, because I really want to get out there and I really want to continue doing what I'm doing.
Great. Next one is, I forgot my next question. I actually had a question for you and I can't find where it is. But my next question, I think, was, what is your goal in fundraising?
There are benefits to COVID too. Ever since I was a little kid, all I wanted to be was a ventriloquist. And because of COVID, I've become a great ventriloquist. Hi, my name is Paul.
All right.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was, how much did you expect to be raising in money to help the cause?
I really had no idea when I started, and I'm really amazed at the help and generosity of my family, friends, motorcycle riders who are taking part in a lot of my MS events, donating money to all the different events that I put on. I have an event that's starting September 1st called the MS 5000. We've been running this now for 7 years, and I think the MS 5000 has raised almost $150,000 for MS events, and I really had no idea. But I'm over $200,000 raised, and 400 and whatever miles. So it would be awesome if I could ride 1 million miles and raise $1 million. But that was never my intent. My intent was to raise awareness, and the fundraising has been incredible. The support from viewers and followers and subscribers to my social media stuff has really been incredible. And I thank everybody for supporting me and supporting the charities that I am working with.
Great. Thank you for that. Next, so 2 different people didn't have questions for you, but they both are very encouraged by your story, Paul. And both said that it's encouraged enough for them that they're going to get out and do more. So thank you again for that as well. I will give you the applause for that. All right. And one person writes, he's so wonderful and funny, I want to know when he's going to be back on again. So all I can say is this: we will try to have Paul back on again. Actually, you will hear him again in October, once for sure on October 17th, and possibly twice, possibly on October 8th. So for now, though, I don't have anything else to ask you. All right, but I'm looking back at Paul in case anybody didn't notice, and I want to give Paul a round of applause. And just remember a few things, people. I got Dr. Hunter back on the line as well. I don't mean to cut it off from Paul, but I got Dr. Hunter back on so we could ask more questions. But again, Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart.
For everything you do.